The Lottery by Shirley Jackson is one of the most famous short stories of all time. It's especially memorable for its final paragraph. When it was first published in The New Yorker in 1948, a ton of readers unsubscribed and sent in a record amount of hate mail. It was also banned in South Africa for reasons that will become obvious later. The Lottery explores the power of tradition and the dangers that come with that. In this video, I'll go over the plot, so it doesn't matter if you've read the story. Then I'll share my thoughts on the themes and ideas. It's a bright, sunny, beautiful summer day. The flowers are colorful, the grass is green, and everything is great. Everyone is gathering in the village square for the annual lottery. The lottery is held in pretty much every town on June 27th. In big towns with lots of people, it can take 2 whole days to run it, but in this village, they only have 300 people, so they can run the lottery in the morning and finish in time for lunch. The children are playing a fun game where they collect the best looking stones. They make piles of the smoothest, roundest stones and guard them from other children. The parents are chilling around, talking about their farms and sharing the latest gossip. Mr. Summers, who will be running the lottery, walks into the village square with a black wooden box. He runs the local coal business and he's a really upstanding member of society. He hosts most of the village's communal activities like square dancing and Halloween events, so of course he's also running the annual lottery. He places the black box on top of a 3-legged stool at the center of the square and starts mixing up the papers inside. The lottery is a really old and sacred tradition. The black box that they use is older than anyone in the village. Mr. Summers has been wanting to make a new box since this one is kind of falling apart, but no one wants to mess with the tradition. Supposedly, the current box was made out of pieces of the original box that the founders of the village used. One thing Mr. Summers did succeed in changing is that they used to use chips of wood, but now they use slips of paper, which are much easier to deal with. Even though the box is sacred, they seem to treat it with a lack of care throughout the rest of the year. It's just stored wherever it ends up, sometimes in a random barn, sometimes on a grocery shelf. They seem to have a bit of a love-hate relationship with it, where it's sacred and special, but they also don't want to think about it. The lottery had all kinds of rules and rituals that went along with it. They had to make a full list of families to know how many paper slips they needed. Mr. Summers had to be sworn in as the official of the lottery. There used to be a special recital for the official to do, but everyone had forgotten it. There also used to be a ritual salute that the official did for each person when they came up to draw from the box, but that was also abandoned over time. So now the official does some small talk with each person when they come up. Tessie Hutchinson comes running into the square late. She forgot what day it was and only just realized it was lottery day and ran from her house. But it's alright, thankfully she's in time and won't miss out on the amazing opportunity to win the lottery. She makes it to her family, then jokes with Mr. Summers about how she had to do the dishes first, and everyone laughs. Now we can start the lottery. Mr. Summers wants to get the show on the road and wrap this up quickly so everyone can get back to their lives ASAP. He's a man of efficiency. They do one final roll call and Dunbar is missing because he has a broken leg, but no worries, his wife will draw for him, so he'll still have a chance to win a brand new toaster, or whatever the lottery is for. In the first round of the lottery, the heads of families will come up and pick a paper out of the box. No one opens their paper until everyone has drawn. Once the process starts, everyone gets completely quiet. There's a weird tension where someone will go up to draw their paper and they'll get a little bit of encouragement from the crowd. Then they'll have an awkward interaction with Mr. Summers where they try to act casual, but they're really nervous. There's a short conversation in the crowd between Old Man Warner and Mr. Adams. Old Man Warner is the oldest person in the village and he's seen 77 lotteries. Mr. Adams tells him that a neighboring village is talking about stopping the annual lottery, and other places have already stopped doing them. Old Man Warner says that young people these days are the worst. Nobody wants to work anymore, and back in his day, people were so much better. There's always been a lottery, and it's foolish to change that. He's even mad that Mr. Summers is joking with people, since the lottery is supposed to be a serious thing. He mentions an old saying that goes, "Lottery in June, corn be heavy soon." Mr. Summers calls his own name, then a few more, and it's finally over. Everyone opens their papers to see which family was chosen in this round. The winner is Bill Hutchinson, husband of Tessie Hutchinson, that one woman who ran in late. Tessie shouts at Mr. Summers that it wasn't fair, and Bill didn't get enough time to take the paper he wanted. People tell her to calm down. They all had the same chance. These people sure don't seem very excited to win the lottery. Who wouldn't want a brand new washing machine or whatever the prize is? Tessie's husband tells her to shut up, and Mr. Summers wants to keep the show on the road and get it over with so everyone can go eat lunch. In the second round of the lottery, members of the winning family will repeat the same process, drawing among themselves to select the final winner. Bill and Tessie have 3 children, and all of their papers are placed back in the box so they can draw again. Tessie says that it wasn't fair and they should start over. She tries to talk to the crowd, but she is ignored. The whole family takes their papers one by one, including their smallest child, little Davy, who is too young to have any clue what's happening, and laughs as he picks his paper. Nancy, who is 12, goes next. Her school friends are anxious as she goes up. Then their son Bill Jr., then Tessie, who goes up with great hesitation, and finally Bill. Everyone is quiet, and someone whispers loud enough for literally everyone to hear, "I hope it's not Nancy." Old Man Warner complains that people these days aren't how they used to be. Then everyone opens their papers. An adult opens the paper for little Davy, and everyone is relieved that he is not the winner. Nancy and Bill Jr. are also not the winners, and they're laughing happily. The winner ends up being Tessie. Her husband has to force the paper out of her hand to confirm it. Mr. Summers tells everyone, "Let's get going and finish this quickly. You know, we got places to be and things to do." Remember those piles of stones that the children were making in the beginning? Mrs. Delacroix, who was laughing with Tessie not too long ago, picks up the biggest stone she can find. Mrs. Dunbar says she's not really fit right now, so she won't be able to keep up with the running. The children are ready with their stones, and they give some pebbles to little Davy, you know, Tessie's son. Tessie stands alone and begs and pleads with the crowd, telling them it wasn't fair and this isn't right. Then they all begin stoning her to death. Before I give my thoughts on the story, let me highlight some public reactions to it when it was originally published. A surprising number of people thought that the story was based on a real event and they wanted to know which town had this tradition. I'm hoping you'll find time to give me further details about the bizarre custom the story describes, where it occurs, who practices it, and why. I think your story is based on fact. Am I right? As a psychiatrist, I am fascinated by the psychodynamic possibilities suggested by this anachronistic ritual. Can the lottery be some barbaric event, a hangover from the Middle Ages perhaps, which is still carried on in the States? In which part of the country does it take place? And then of course, there was all the hate mail. Tell Miss Jackson to stay out of Canada. I expect a personal apology from the author. I will never buy The New Yorker again. I resent being tricked into reading perverted stories like The Lottery. Never in the world did I think I'd protest a story in The New Yorker, but really, gentlemen, The Lottery seems to me to be an incredibly bad taste. I read it while soaking in the tub and was tempted to put my head underwater and end it all. When the author sent in this story, she undoubtedly included some explanation of place or some evidence that such a situation could exist. Then isn't the reader entitled to some such evidence? Otherwise, the reader has a right to indict you as editor of willfully misrepresenting the human race. Perhaps you, as editor, are proud of publishing a story that reached a new low in human viciousness. The burden of proof is up to you when your own preoccupation with evil leads you into such evil ways. A few more such stories and you will alienate your most devoted readers, in which class I, until now, have been included. You have betrayed a trust with your readers by giving them such a bestial selection. Unaware, the reader was led into a casual tale of village folk, becoming conscious only gradually of the rising tension, till the shock of the unwholesome conclusion, skillful though it was wrought, left him with total disgust for the story and with disillusionment in the magazine publishing it. I speak of my own reaction. If that is not the reaction of the majority of your readers, I miss my guess. Heretofore, mine has been almost a stockholder's pride in the New Yorker. I shared my copy with my friends as I do the other possessions which I most enjoy. When your latest issue arrived, my new distaste kept me from removing the brown paper wrapping, and into the waste basket it went. Since I can't conceive that I'll develop interest in it again, save the results of your efforts that indignity every week, and cancel my subscription immediately. I hope one day I can publish something that makes people this angry. The most terrifying thing about this story is that, unlike a typical horror story, this is actually realistic. This is a real thing I can imagine happening. Many societies throughout history engaged in cruel rituals that made sense to them at the time. The fact that so many readers thought this story was based on a real event happening somewhere in America speaks for itself. History is filled with rituals like this, but at least when the Aztecs were doing their human sacrifice, they were doing it for specific gods for a specific purpose. The people in the lottery don't even know why they're doing it. They're doing it purely out of blind tradition, because that's what they've always done. And that's very scary, because there are lots of things in our own society that we only do because it's always been like that. Some people got mad at the story because they considered it an attack on small towns, but I don't think it's really about small towns, since the lottery happens in larger towns too. Maybe the point of highlighting a small town was to show that even in a small town where everyone knows everyone, traditions are powerful enough to turn those people against each other. It would be less surprising in a big city with 1 million people where you barely know anyone to kill one random person every year. The fact that this tradition is being kept alive in a small town where everyone is friendly with each other makes it 100 times worse, and highlights the power of tradition. Throughout the story, we have a little hint of people's family members being killed in past lotteries, while the children of those families continue to participate. There's one boy drawing for his mother and himself, and you can take a wild guess where his father is. It's like they're in a cult, but it's just a tradition that they're following. Every other day of the year, it's a regular town of people, but when lottery day comes, they become something else. They're even handing stones to Tessie's little son at the end so he can stone his own mother to death. Like, the child doesn't even understand what's happening. But if you indoctrinate a child this young, then of course it'll seem normal to them when they grow up. Like, yeah, doesn't everyone stone their parents to death? I thought that was just a normal thing to do. We also get a hint of what the original purpose of the lottery was when Old Man Warner mentions the old saying, "Lottery in June, corn be heavy soon." So this was originally some kind of ritual sacrifice done to improve the harvest. Even though that's a very questionable idea, at least there was a utilitarian purpose to it. A sacrifice for the greater good. But the people doing it now don't see it like that because they don't even know what the point was supposed to be. All they know is that when they were children, they too were handed stones to throw at the lottery winners. Maybe some people found Tessie annoying and didn't mind killing her, but little Davy, her small child, also had to draw in this lottery. There isn't even an age limit. These people were perfectly willing to throw stones at a small child. They don't care. They just follow the tradition. Old Man Warner holds on tightly to the tradition. He wants to keep everything the way it is. Other towns are getting rid of the lottery because they've realized it's pretty stupid, but he wants to keep the tradition alive and thinks that kids these days don't respect tradition enough and they're all going to be ruined for it. His strongest defense of the lottery is that there's always been a lottery, but that's not true, sir. There hasn't always been a lottery. All of our traditions are just something that someone decided to do at some point. Maybe they were useful in the past, maybe they're still useful now, but traditions are not some infallible law of the universe. They were made by people just like you. Many of our traditions are good and valuable and sacred and should be continued, but we should also be willing to question traditions when they no longer seem to be serving a useful purpose. Mr. Summers wants to run the lottery more efficiently so he can get back to running his coal mines or whatever. At first, it looks like he's trying to change things and question tradition, but really he's just trying to streamline the system, which will entrench it even more. If he lets the black box fall apart, the tradition might actually die out, but instead, he keeps trying to improve and fix things and make the process as efficient as possible so it can get done without much effort, which will guarantee that it lasts even longer. If this man could push a button and kill someone automatically every year, he would do that instead. I'm also 1,000,000% sure that this guy rigged the lottery. He knows exactly what the bad slip looks and feels like. There's no chance he's ever going to be selected, so of course he's never going to try to stop the lottery. It doesn't affect him in the slightest. Tessie is complaining at the end about how it's not fair, but she was perfectly fine with everything before her family got chosen. If she had concerns, she could have voiced them before. She was happy to go along with the lottery as long as she didn't win. There's a rule that if your daughters are married, then they count as being part of their husband's family, so they don't have to participate in the second round of drawing. But Tessie tries to get her older daughter to draw too, throwing her own children under the bus to increase her odds of survival. I wonder how people usually respond to winning the lottery. Is Tessie's reaction normal? Her husband Bill seems to have a completely different reaction. When he wins the first round, his response is to be extremely chill and accepting of the situation. Like, yep, looks like I won. And you get the feeling that if he was the final winner, he would just accept it and move on. Like, yeah, it's my turn to die. Bye everyone. I think he's someone who truly believes in the system so much that even if it kills him, he'll be in support of it. It's worth noting that this story has many interpretations and analysis written about it. You can look at it as a commentary on the Red Scare, the death penalty, the military draft, witch trials, and many other things. What I've talked about here barely scratches the surface. That's how you know it's a well-written story. It can be applied in many different situations and contexts. It's a lens into a common pattern found all over human society, past and present. If you made it this far in the video, thanks for watching. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the story too. See you next time.